Hey everybody, HomeSliceHenry here, and in today's video, I'm going to be showcasing an open grade league team that I put together as a bit of a laugh, but honestly way exceeded expectations, climbing over 100 elo in 3 sets to get me past 3250 elo, which at the time of recording puts me within the top 200 ranked battlers in the entire world. The team is built around Shadow Amoonguss. I wanted to run a double grass strategy, and Amoonguss fit the bill as a pretty flexible grass type that can fight back even in its worst matchups. On the lead, I'm running Dunsparce, and as the closer, Shadow Jumpluff. So without further ado, let's hop into the matches and take a look at Shadow Amoonguss climbing to top 200 globally in the Open Great League. And we're off to a very neutral start in the first match, leading Dunsparce into Azumarill. With 2 grass types in the back, I would love if my opponent throws energy early, so that way I can look to pivot into Amoonguss. Play Rough is going to land. I send in Amoonguss. Opponent sends out Drifblim, which is normally a nightmare for grass types, but not for Amoonguss. These Astonishes absolutely tearing the poor Drifblim to shreds. Drifblim is going to return to fire with the Icy Wind, but even though my attack is now debuffed, I can still get a full Astonish farm down and win switch. Opponent now going to bring in a Sableye. Sableye going to be hit with a Foul Play. I did opt for the Foul Play Sludge Bomb moveset. Sludge Bomb gives me coverage against other grasses, and it gives me a move that also gets same type attack bonus, and Foul Play is really nice for those situations in which Amoonguss is being used as a safe switch. So that way if it gets stuck against something like a Steel type, or in this case a Ghost type, you have a move for that. Here I'm going to bring in the Jumpluff. Azumarill farming up a ton of energy. Ice Beam will hit for double super effective damage. It's survivable, but I really don't want to have to take that move. So I am going to commit the shield and now look to spam out Aerial Aces. Aerial Ace is going to pick up the knockout. Back in comes the Sableye, but with a move loaded on Dunsparce and a move on the Amoonguss, my opponent will resign the match. Great lead in the next match, Dunsparce versus Jumpluff. They save switch into their own Dunsparce, and this is very important. Since they switched out, they're 1 turn behind, so as long as I throw right away, which I do, I actually deny them a full rollout sneak. Since I was the one to throw first and they were behind by a turn, I'm now always going to be in a position where I can guarantee switch or shield advantage because I just have more energy than my opponent. See, they throw right there because that's when they got their move, and I can throw my drill run right when I get it. I am going to wait the turn to make sure there's no catch, but they don't have the move. They can't CMP time me there because I threw my first move right away and took advantage of the 1 turn of desync. In comes Annihilate. I was a little slow on the switch out there. I send in the Amoonguss. As you can see, Astonish does so much damage to Annihilate. They're forced to switch out into the Jumpluff, but there's a Sludge Bomb ready and waiting for them. Absolutely devastating damage. Jumpluff barely clinging to life as it fires off the back-to-back Aerial Aces. At this point, I should have a pretty straightforward win con, and that is just farming down with the Jumpluff. If my opponent can survive 5 Fairy Winds, I'm going to catch onto the Dunsparce, but the 5th actually KOs, and now up energy, and since I outpaced, there's no way for my opponent to win, barring them running Ice Punch. So even though typically you don't want to shield the first move from an Annihilate, because of course Rage Fist gets a guaranteed attack boost, I know that my opponent just mathematically can never make 3 moves here. I just have too fast of pacing. So they know this as well. They're going to try and tank an Aerial Ace and double up, but it's just not going to happen. We get the Fairy Wind farm down and take the game. Moving to the next match, we see a pretty solid lead Dunsparce into Wigglytuff. I'm more than happy to see the Wigglytuff on the lead, as of course Wigglytuff, its energy would be very threatening to the grass types in the back. Firing off a Drill Run, that's going to connect. Opponent actually under-taps a Swift so they don't even commit to the Icy Wind. And now I'm going to look to fire off a Drill Run, and then whether they shield or not, it is Amoonguss time. I know Astonish will be double resisted, and now I get to send in the Amoonguss. Opponent going to bring in Annihilate. Trainer, that is not a response. And now look at these Astonishes go. Amoonguss doesn't get same type attack bonus on Astonish, but those Astonishes are melting that ape. Oh my goodness. Here they built up to an Ice Punch, so I actually respect it, and I immediately regret that decision, as now they're actually going to get a 2nd Rage Fist unless I fire off this Foul Play. So they're just going to let it go. They bring out Dunsparce. Dunsparce going to fire off energy. Drill Run, I believe, can KO here. It's neutral. The opponent actually makes a misplay. They go for a Rock Slide. Rock Slide, a less powerful move. I actually get a Sludge Bomb now, and then I can switch into the Jumpluff, and Jumpluff is just winning for me. And these battles took place in the 31 to 3200s, so that just shows that sometimes, even if you throw something unexpected at a very good battler, they just won't know what to do against it. They try for the catch, they do not get the catch, and we're able to take the win. Amazingly, in the next match, Dunsparce versus Shadow Typhlosion. Opponent safe switches into Feraligatr. Feraligatr could have Hydroed right away, and it would have been on good timing. I'm a little surprised that they didn't. Drill Run is going to land. I'm now going to bring in Amoonguss. Amoonguss, this is a tough call to make. They're probably just going to go double Hydro here. They will go for the first Hydro. Oh, they try and get another move, but they can't get there. And now in comes Typhlosion, and look at those Incinerates. Now it's Amoonguss' turn to get melted. Can I survive this next Incinerate? It would be massive. Amoonguss with the 1 HP survive. You can't even see its health bar, but it survives. It gets the foul play, forcing a second shield. In comes the Dunsparce, and I know that from this health range, I can survive a Blast Burn. I'm saving my final shield for the Jumpluff. In the back, they have Ferrothorn, and this game should just be a win. Ferrothorn is going to be firing off Thunder in this matchup, but Thunder is not able to two-shot. Bullet Seed being double resisted, my opponent is in a very difficult position. I only want to throw when I have back-to-back moves here, basically, so I am going to look to farm up quite a bit. And now, I'm thinking to myself, I can just undertap this. This will KO, and I have a move on the Dunsparce, so I actually do throw on alignment there, but the move will KO, so the Bullet Seed will not register. They can bring back in the Typhlosion, and it turns out that I actually don't even need the move on the Dunsparce. I'm just going to get the win with the Jumpluff, Shadow Jumpluff, knocking out a Fire type, and we're able to take the game. Hopping into the next match, Dunsparce versus Shadow Dragonite. Dunsparce picking up some pretty solid leads. Opponent safe switches into Toxapex, and this is where things get a little bit tricky. As both the Dragonite and the Toxapex, Dunsparce does well into, and I'm going to have to manage Dunsparce's energy and health very carefully if I want to win this game. So my opponent is going to be firing off a Sludge Wave that does some pretty significant damage. I'm going to look to go for a Drill Run and then send in the Shadow Amoonguss. I'm going to try and go for an Astonish farm down here. In comes the Amoonguss, and I get the farm down. They don't get a move. In comes the Dragonite, but look at the Astonishes go. Shadow Amoonguss putting on a clinic right now. I was honestly, as I mentioned at the start, running this Pokemon for a bit of a laugh. I was shocked how well it performed. And now they're forced to throw energy. They can't farm me down. I'm just going to trust in Shadow Jumpluff up a shield. Opponent, they're staying in. They're taking quite a bit of damage. I'm going to shield, go for the full farm down. I still have the Dunsparce available as well. And unfortunately, I will never get to find out what was in the back as the opponent resigned the match. We see a very familiar lead in the next match, Dunsparce versus Azumarill. I have 2 grasses in the back, so I'm going to want to switch out eventually. I throw on 6 to try and CMP tie them, but my opponent is not going to fall for it, and instead, they're going to go for the extra energy. They wait the turn to make sure that I don't get a catch. I'm more than happy to let this go, and now seems as good of a time as any, so I'm going to bring in Amoonguss. Out comes Ariados. A pretty good Pokemon to bait out here for me, as even though I do have Aerial Ace on Jumpluff, it's still not a comfortable matchup, so I will get debuffed by the Neutral Lunge, but I can return fire with the Foul Play. Foul Play is debuffed, but still does quite a bit of damage, so even though this is a losing matchup, look at the amount of damage that this Shadow Amoonguss was able to output, and I believe this is going to put it into perfect farm down range for the Dunsparce, and we now have so much energy. In comes Azumarill. Azumarill going to get hit with Drill Run after Drill Run in this matchup. Drill Run's going to connect. Unfortunately, not going to do a ton of damage. The Azumarill still has plenty of health, so it can even no-shield this next move as well. Opponent, again, waiting the turn. They are taking no chances. I'm going to trust in the fact that a lot of people are weak to Jumpluff, but this is not one of those times. It's a Shadow Drifblim in the back. That's a losing matchup in all shields, so I'm just going to resign the match. Looks like we're going to get a revenge against Drifblim in the next match as I lead Dunsparce into it. Opponent's safe switch is Licky Licky, and I'm pretty surprised that they didn't throw the Slam right away. As if they had done that, they could have actually gotten that turn that they lost from switching back. But now, they're just always going to be one rollout behind. They go for an Earthquake. This is really good information to have, as this tells me that they are running Earthquake instead of something like Shadow Ball, so now I'm more than happy to bank a ton of energy and just bring in the Jumpluff. as Jumpluff is the one Pokemon on the team that doesn't really want to see the Drifblim. The other two, it's very fine for Drifblim to go up against. I'm going to fire off an Aerial Ace. This won't KO, but it will get them quite low. The Aerial Ace gets them deep into the red, and I'm able to get a Fairy Wind farm down. In comes the Drifblim. Drifblim, oh, it's going to be very close as to whether I can survive this next Astonish. So the Aerial Ace is going to land. Opponent cannot get the farm down. We survive. Our two Shadow Grass types have had a couple 1 HP survives, which is very nice. Here I decided to just click the move. They're going to get a catch onto Poliwrath, so a good catch from them, but it's not going to matter. I have Shadow Amoonguss, and look at these Astonishes go to work. I now get to outpace because Poliwrath's pacing is abysmally bad. Sludge Bomb is going to be shielded. They throw on alignment, I guess wanting to apply the debuff before the next Astonish registered, but in doing so, they've just cost themselves an ability to make the next move, because now I just outpace with the Amoonguss because of their decision to throw on alignment. So I get the Sludge Bomb, it KOs, in comes Drifblim. I'm debuffed, but you cannot deny the Astonish damage, and I'm taking the win with Amoonguss. People need to start respecting it, and it's gonna take the win for us in dramatic fashion. We see a terrible lead in the next match. Dunsparce into Annihilate, the safe switch into Amoonguss, and I'm able to bait out Clodsire. Clodsire, of course, would be an absolute disaster for Jumpluff to see, so it's very good to bait this out, and we'll see what Amoonguss can do here. They're going to go for a Stone Edge. Stone Edge will do quite a lot of damage. Matchups like these against very bulky Pokemon or where Foul Play feels underwhelming, like that does not do a lot of damage. Even if I throw another Foul Play here, it's not going to be enough to KO. They go for the Stone Edge. I'm going to go for a Foul Play. And unfortunately, it looks like I will get outpaced here, as my opponent is going to shield, and I can get close to the move, but I can't quite get there. I decide Amoonguss has done its job. Instead of trying to fight for Switch, I'm just going to go for a lot of farm with the Dunsparce. Dunsparce farming up a ton. Opponent ends up throwing on alignment. I want to leave with as much energy as I possibly can, and I don't realistically think that I can farm down. So I'll farm to 100 and go for an undercharged Rock Slide to give myself one more rollout. So I will get a little bit of extra energy. In comes the Annihilate, and I'm just looking for chip damage here with the Drill Run before I send in the Shadow Jumpluff. So I get some damage. In comes the Jumpluff. In the back is Feraligatr, and this is the core that we're targeting. I do decide to go for the bait here, firing off the Aerial Ace. Opponent calls the bait, and all is lost. My only win con now is to call a bait back. They can win it straight Ice Beam, but apparently we are all making misplays in this endgame. They call my bait, but I call theirs, and I'm right back in the game. They're going to be firing off the Hydro Cannon. I will be committing the shield, looking to overfarm as much as I can before delivering a knockout with an Aerial Ace. So I'll throw the Aerial Ace. They end up catching onto Annihilate. I think that's just strictly a misplay from them, as the Annihilate was the more likely Pokemon to actually win the game for them. They will actually get to a move on the Feraligatr, but I can just switch into the Dunsparce to force their energy and then make the Aerial Ace with the Jumpluff. So I think I was actually in a bit of a tricky position there if my opponent decided to just not catch and preserve the Annihilate, but that ended up simplifying the endgame for me quite a bit. We're seeing a lot of Jumpluff in these battles, leading Dunsparce into Jumpluff. They're going to save switch into Feraligatr, and again, I'm pretty surprised that these Feraligatrs aren't throwing on 5, because if you throw right when you get it there, as here, I'm going to make a very nice catch by waiting a turn and catching the Hydro onto Amoonguss. If you're switching in and you're behind by a turn, you can throw immediately, and it's actually on good timing, and it outpaces the Dunsparce, so you guaranteed get some damage. Whereas now, my opponent has basically not damaged the Dunsparce at all. I'm down a shield, but the Sludge Bomb is going to get a shield back, or inflict massive damage on the Jumpluff, and they actually end up letting that through. So I should be in a terrific position. They farm up a bunch of energy. Aerial Ace is going to connect. It's Dunsparce, and it's Shadow Marowak in the back, and this should just be a winning endgame for me. I will be shielding up, as it's very unlikely for them to bait, and they will go for the Rock Slide. Speaking of baits, I'm actually going to go for a bait here. Even if they no shield an Aerial Ace, I still should be in a pretty good spot. Opponent is going to shield it, and now I can go for the Energy Ball, and yeah, this should just be a one endgame for me. So the Energy Ball is going to connect, or actually not connect, as they will actually commit the final shield, but I get a defense drop. So they're going to be firing off their energy here. Rock Slide connects. I go for one in the move, but I forgot their Jumpluff banked energy. No! Disaster strikes. Aerial Ace KOs, and I'm in trouble. My only hope is to farm down, but they get to an Energy Ball there. I can't get the farm down. This was the easiest game ever, and I'm gonna lose it. They switched out one shy of the Bone Club, they sneak through a Mud Slap as I throw, and they win the CMP tie. And that's got to be one of the worst losses I've had in a while. Just a completely won game, but in my head, I completely forgot that they banked an aerial ace, and that cost me everything. We move to the final match in need of some serious redemption after that last game. We do pick up a pretty solid lead, Dunsparce into Shadow Drapion. Shadow Drapion, unfortunately, this matchup is a lot less comfortable than the Dunsparce player might like, just purely based off the fact that they can inflict a lot of damage over time, and if they're able to catch out of it, then you're in a very difficult position. Drapion is going to fire off the crunch. I'm always making sure that when I do one of the move that I don't see a switch out there, so I can make sure that the drill run lands on the intended target, or in this case, forces the shield. I'm expecting my opponent to do one and switch, so I'm actually just going to wait a turn, and then when I see the Poison Sting, I can fire off this drill run and pick up the KO. Drapion would be terrible for my backline, so I'm very happy to get this out of the way here. In comes Azumarill, I'm going to pivot into Amoonguss, and opponent in the back has Galarian Moltres. Galarian Moltres is going to get hit with a Sludge Bomb. Shadow Sludge Bomb does big damage to that Moltres. Moltres, if they go for an Ancient Power, I'm going to tank this. Amoonguss has some pretty okay bulk to it. They go for a Brave Bird, but this is going to give me an incredibly sick Fairy Wind farm down. In comes the Jump Love. We get the full farm down. Back in comes the Azumarill, and I'm going to fire off the Energy Ball. I'm expecting Azumarill is going to go for one in the move, so I'm going to throw one, attempt to catch, and now I'm one off. Opponent overfarms quite a bit, but they play to a CMP tie that they do not win. My opponent now has exactly one win condition. They need the perfect undercharge to leave me in exactly one bubble range. They try for it, but it still KOs, and I get the aerial ace, and I'm able to take the win. Honestly, the opponent was in a really tough position there. One away from a move on the Jump Love meant that they had to exit with that move loaded, and here we see me claiming my final set to get to 3251 elo. Overall, while I did gain a lot of elo with this team, I do struggle to recommend it, just because I do think that this team's success was in large part due to the surprise factor of the Shadow Amoonguss, and if people watch the video after it's released and know what to expect, then the team might not have as good of results. So I don't think, even though I went very, very positive with the team, I could recommend it as a climbing team. In my view, it relies a little bit too heavily on what I like to call information asymmetry, or basically the surprise factor. Opponents, when you're queuing up in your day-to-day sets, you're not expecting an Amoonguss, so if you see a Grass Poison, maybe you're thinking Venusaur, Roserade, you bring in a Ghost, and suddenly you're getting shredded by Astonishes from Shadow Amoonguss. But overall, I had a ton of fun with the team, so I did want to share it, just to show that thinking outside the box can produce some pretty good outcomes, especially in this current Open Great League meta. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. If you're enjoying the content, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't. And a special thank you as always to our members here on YouTube. The support guys provide is sincerely appreciated. So thank you guys oh so very much. And until next time, I've been HomeSliceHenry.